So the sheets go into an oven at 218 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes. A strong fan cools them off as they exit the oven. Next, a worker sprays contact cement on the backs of 2 painted sheets. One sheet will form the front of the board, the other the back. Sandwiched in between will be what's known as the blackboard's core. It can be made of materials such as particle board, or, as we see here, 12mm thick fiberboard. Workers feed the 3 assembled layers through a high-pressure roller. It forces out any trapped air and bonds the layers tightly. They make the blackboard's frame out of one long strip of aluminum molding. It has a stain-proof satin finish. They make a series of 45-degree angle cuts. This enables them to bend the strip around the board's perimeter, creating neat corner seams. Workers file down and polish any sharp edges left by the cutting. After verifying that it's perfectly square, they fasten the frame using either rivets or screws, depending on the model. Then they attach an aluminum rail along the bottom to hold the chalk and eraser brushes. This model happens to be a reversible mobile blackboard, the type typically rolled into conference rooms. It has a couple of extra components: a pivot mechanism, enabling the board to be flipped to the other side, and a latch system for tilting the board to different angles. The blackboard stand is made of painted steel tubing. It rolls on rubber and chrome-plated steel casters. The factory takes samples from the production line and subjects them to rigorous quality control testing. These tests ensure that the painted surface is glare-free and can withstand everything from chemical solvents and extreme humidity to heavy impact and hard scratches. The company has even designed this special machine to conduct a killer durability test. It applies 100,000 chalk and brush strokes using the typical amount of pressure a person would use. For the production batch to score an A and make it to market, surface wear on the sample has to amount to less than 1/100th of a millimeter. And that's not all. The paint finish must still be matte. A writing test has to produce chalk lines that are clear and dark enough, and the writing has to erase cleanly and easily. For thousands of years, smoked fish was a survival food. People would cure their catches by salting them and hanging them to dry, or by smoking them over an open fire. This enabled people in cold climates to stockpile nutrient-rich fish for those long winter months. Today we smoke fish primarily to enhance its flavor. This is wild sockeye salmon that was gutted and frozen right on board the fishing trawler to preserve maximum freshness. The smokehouse defrosts the fish over 15 hours in running water that's just 2 degrees above freezing. This slow, cold water thaw helps prevent bacteria from forming. Next stop, filleting. First, they slice off what's known as the collar, the fish version of the neck. Then they cut each fish in half lengthwise, separating 2 fillets from what's called the control bone, the fish equivalent of a spinal column. The tail is attached to it. They feed the control bones into a machine that strips off any remaining scraps of flesh. The machine grinds these bits into minced salmon, which is used to make salmon pie. They trim the fillets using a razor-sharp knife. slicing off the fins, any excess fat, and any control bone fragments left behind. After this, the fish will be ready for curing, a preservation process that also enhances taste. Workers coat the fillets in a mixture of salt and 26 spices, then let them sit for roughly an hour and a half. This short cure time will limit the salmon's salt content to less than 1%. To stop the curing process, they rinse off the coating with cold water, then glaze the fillets with maple syrup to neutralize any remaining salt residue. Some companies use a less costly mix of boiled water and brown sugar. The fillets go into a huge smoke oven. Workers load its combustion chamber with sawdust. Maple tree sawdust for the first 8 hours of smoking, cherry tree sawdust for the next 8 hours, and apple tree sawdust for the last 8 hours. This particular sequence is a major factor in flavoring the fish. They douse the fire with water to generate smoke. This process is called cold smoking because the oven temperature is 10 degrees Celsius, significantly lower than the industry norm of 25 degrees. Smoking at this lower temperature takes at least 24 hours, 3 times longer than the norm. But the company says it produces a moister product. When the fillets come out of the smoke oven, they're thoroughly cooked, but still have the consistency of raw fish. Workers remove the pin bones, 40 thin bones per fillet, located between the head and fin. The fillets then go through a skinning machine, which neatly slices off the skin without removing any flesh. Then it's into a freezer at -3 degrees Celsius. This firms up the fillets, making them easier to slice. The manual slicing machines cut them into pieces about 2 millimeters thick.